Today, we shall reflect on the theme, blinded to reality. And we see that many times in our lives, we hear so many things, we get influenced by so many other factors, that we tend to get blind to reality, that we are not able to perceive things as they are. In a way, our prejudices make us blind to reality, and sometimes we see that people may tell us something about somebody else, and we tend to keep that in mind, and when we encounter that person, our perception is already colored by what we have heard. And therefore, whatever good the person may do, we still think of it in the same light. The famous example of the glasses. If you wear a blue colored glass, the world appears blue. And similarly, we see that the disciples too had their perception or had their expectations different, and therefore they were not able to understand exactly what Jesus was telling them. In the first reading taken from the book of Genesis, we see that how Lord saw that his own creation had become wicked. And we see that that is one of the drawbacks of men. When we tend to get something that we want, we think that we have got it by our merit. We forget all the favors that the Lord has done for us. And therefore, we tend to be filled with the desire to accumulate more and more, to achieve more and more. At the same time, we tend to forget the graces and the favors that we have received from others. And the same thing we see today. Man had become so selfish that he was bothered only about himself. And we see that the Lord regretted. And he said that he would wipe out all of creation. But then we have Noah, who was a man of virtue, who followed everything that the Lord said. And he pleaded to the Lord, and the Lord heard his prayer. And then a few, as he mentioned, to take 7 pairs of clean animals and 1 pair of unclean animal. These were all taken in the ark. And as we know, the rains came down, the earth was flooded, and then all those who were in the ark were saved. A glance at the gospel of today reveals that we need to be attentive to the negativity around us. Jesus speaks about the east of the Pharisees and Herod. What exactly is this east of the Pharisees? Well, in today's world, it could be the negativity that we see around us. When we open the newspapers, when we open any websites or turn on the news, we are filled or bombarded with various sorts of negativity, crimes, murders, etc. And here we see that sometimes our perception could be discolored, our perception could be influenced by these factors. And similarly, we see that the disciples also had heard plenty of things from others. Probably whenever they were going around, people must have told them, okay, the Messiah would be something like this, the Messiah would be a great man. And then when they saw Jesus, who was a very simple man, probably they would have lost hope, or probably the expectations would have been turned down. And similarly, we see that when we too have great expectations, when our expectations are beyond what we can do, we tend to get disappointed. And that is why we need to discern well. We need to discern what is good and what is bad, and not to have too great expectations about everything. We see that Jesus then puts a series of questions to the disciples. Some of these questions were quite harsh, but that is what was needed for the disciples. And in a way, we see that the cause of the clash between Jesus and the disciples was, in a way, the expectations that they had about him. They thought that the Messiah would be a king, a revolutionary, someone who would free them from slavery. But then when they saw Jesus, nobody expected that Jesus or the Messiah would be a servant. Jesus liked to serve others. He was humble, he was meek, he was kind. And we see that the difference between the Pharisees and the disciples here was that the Pharisees had evil intentions. They wanted to criticize Jesus, whereas the disciples were innocent. In a sense, they did not understand exactly what Jesus was telling them because their whole mind was set on something else. And in a way, let us especially pray for the grace that we too may be able to perceive what is right and what is wrong. And let us ask the grace that we too may not have our perceptions colored by the negativity that we have around us.